Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Benchkowski, if you can lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for our veterans. And for the invocation tonight, Reverend Rick Maisano.
Father, as we stand before you, as we just did the Pledge of Allegiance, Father, it's one nation under God. And Father, we're asking, Lord, that this nation would come together as one. That, Father, people put aside their differences and work it out and talk to one another, Father, and find a compromise wherever it could be. So, Lord, I do pray, even in this board, that tonight, Father, everything will go well. That, Father God, that respect for one another will be taking place. And, Lord, that understand that we want unity in our board, in our nation, in our towns, in our villages, Lord. Father, we thank you for our police force who's here tonight. And, Lord, we ask your blessing upon our police, our fire, and all first responders. And also, Father, for all those in armed forces, we ask your blessing. For we ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Roll call. Councilmember Barbara Bukowski. Here. Councilmember Diane Benchkowski.
Here.
Councilmember Anthony Flipsky.
Here.
Councilmember Michael Jazinski.
Here.
Councilmember Brian Pilarski.
Present.
Councilmember Vernon Thompson.
Here.
Supervisor Brian Nowak.
Present.
All are present.
Right. Our next order of business this evening is Resolution 2025-185.
Resolution 2025-185 is sponsored by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Supervisor Nowak. The following individuals being and hereby are appointed to the provisional position of Public Safety Dispatcher in the Police Department at a salary in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement between the Town of Cheektowaga and the Town of Cheektowaga Public Safety Dispatchers Association, effective March 26, 2025. That is Emily Fullerano, Cheektowaga, New York, and Zachary Klefka of Cheektowaga, New York.
Right. On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries, and I'd like to invite the chief to the podium.
Good evening. First off, I want to thank you for the approval. Public safety dispatchers are an important piece in public safety. They are our officers' lifeline out there on the street, so thank you very much. First, I'd like to introduce you to Emily Florino. She's got an associate's degree in criminal justice from ECC. She's a town resident, employed as a food service manager at Greenfield Terrace Nursing Home. More importantly, she's also been working with us part-time and our detention officer as a matron. So, welcome. I'd like to introduce you to Zachary Klafka. Zachary is a town resident, graduate of Depew High School. He attended ECC North and has a criminal justice associate's degree, graduating in 2 months or so. So, Zachary Klafka. Thank you again.
Next order of business is presentation for new business. Is there any board member that has an item on this section of the agenda tonight?
Let's say I just want to comment on this, and it may come up even in the board discussion. My thought on this when we were changing the meetings around was presentations for any new businesses that wanted to come and present to us. That was my thinking on that. I don't know if that was everybody's, but just to clarify, and if that is the intent.
Well, Understood. I also see old business and new business. I don't know if anybody spoke with any company, developer, property owner under this item. So I just wanted to confirm that. So hearing none, we'll move on to public comment period. This is an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving the town of Cheektowaga. The public comment period should last 15 minutes maximum. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. And just to clarify for those in the audience this evening, previously this section pertained only to resolution items. This is an open forum at this time and going forward. With that, I'll see who we have signed up. All right. We have Elias Farah this evening.
Hey, everybody. I think you all know that I'm now your new town assessor. So I just wanted to kind of give you an update. Being in the department now, it's been about a week and a couple days, but just wanted to fill you in a little bit about what's going on there. I asked around when I first got in there what pretty much everybody needs. It looked like one of the main things they were saying is because there's some deadlines. And they got hit with kind of because taxes come due and people tend to come in and then they realize they need exemptions. So it comes at the same time. So they did kind of indicate to me that they've had a rush of these exemptions because they didn't have an actual assessor for a week or two. That slowed down a little bit of it. They are kind of, they're getting a lot of the exemptions still. I think they still have 572 to process, 282 sales, and 59 veterans exemptions that are still going. So the one thing that I was looking at, I think they at one point had overtime, which they would use for like the grievance day. They would go with the assessor to that, but also as we got toward that final push, because they all need to be done by May 1st, they may have to do some overtime. I think it was in the budget as an extra $8,000 that was taken out of it. But I was wondering if, I don't know what Michael before me's salary was, but I know what mine is, and I don't know if there's any money left over that's still allocated for that, but I would ask that the employees, they're allowed to take some overtime, not overkill, but just in case, because I don't want to come down to the last week and all of a sudden I got to come back to you and ask for overtime. If there'd be a small amount of overtime that I could give to those employees, because I think that way we're ahead of it and we're not going to miss it. And because I'm kind of playing catch up, I want to make sure that we make that May 1st deadline. And then we also have some people on hand because I know the residents tend to have a lot of questions and things they want to bring up at grievance day. Also, just so I can get ahead of that, because I've realized from people calling and kind of asking me questions, a lot of people kind of don't understand what goes on in the assessor's office. It's like a big mystery. So I was going to see if we could put on, kind of like a town hall event with some slides, and some of the residents might want to come out. Because sometimes I think they have some confusion that we collect the taxes. I think maybe to clarify, then it would take off some of that burden on grievance day so the people who are coming actually understand why they're coming. And they also don't show up in a big angry mob here on, one of the board meetings. Maybe we can just, at the senior center, or if one of the local places wants to host it, I'd be happy to go through the slides from the assessor's offices in the state that they do. So just another thing, but, the main, I guess, outreach is a big thing that I'm trying to see if we can get more involved in so people actually recognize what goes on, so it's not just an angry mass. But also, I think it would be helpful if the board were able to give us a little bit for overtime, just so that way we could have some of that extra money to get ahead of.
I'm looking at the budget, and you do have some overtime. You have $8,000.
I think they cut the 8,000, right? Is it still in there?
I thought that we put it back.
It could, if it's there, yeah. We will.
While Diane's looking up that, I just wanted to say that's a great suggestion to do like a learn kind of seminar for people that are not understanding fully how to do this. But what I would also suggest, if we could maybe live stream it too on the YouTube channel we use for people that necessarily can't make it.
Yeah. I think I could talk to IT. Maybe they can hook it up in the senior center, and then there's a lot of people, especially elderly people. It makes it very difficult to get to places, but also there's a lot of complex. Well, it appears complex, and then people get kind of confused and they're not sure what to do. So I think maybe that will alleviate some of the burden of people coming in here asking the questions. Maybe they'll find out what goes on there. But is it in the budget still?
The tentative budget, the budget book,
Okay.
says that there was $8,000 of overtime. The resolution 2024-680, it was changes to the budget, took that 8,000 out.
Okay.
With that said, there is room in the salary line that we're compensating you with, if the board wants to consider it, to shift some type of funds, I would say up to $8,000, but no more than that, maybe less, to honor your request and to stay budget conscious.
You also got to figure the couple of weeks without, Milks being there, that money's still there as well to use for the OT.
So
Put in a budget transfer if the board's so willing. Maybe we could take it up under new business before we get to resolution items. Yeah?
okay.
I'm not in favor of $8,000.
Understood.
I was going to ask if you had a suggestion, how much time you think it would be warranted to catch up
Well,
instead of just a blanket number.
Yeah,
And I don't need an answer right now, but
yeah.
Just,
What I'm going to do is I can kind of ask the office about how many they can process, reasonably on average per day. I know it fluctuates because they kind of get them in bulk, but if I can come to them with an average, I'd say even if we could start with half of that now. From what they told me, they don't really use a lot. It's really just a few days to make sure they're all there, and then a lot of it for that grievance day, so that it would just be myself and another part-time employee that would be there. So it'd be better if there's a bunch of people here that everybody could kind of work through that day. That way the residents aren't sitting for 6 hours waiting to talk to one person. But I can go back and look at the numbers and see if we can come up with approximately where we think we would be. I would at least something to tell them, like we can get some overtime, because I don't want them to be discouraged that we might not make that deadline. I mean, we have to make the deadline one way or another, but I just want to make sure we meet it and we don't have the county or state come in here to be like, why didn't you meet your deadline? But I think losing 2 weeks and also some of the transition has kind of put things off a little bit. So at least I would say the overtime to kind of compensate for the 2 weeks at least, and then we can kind of go from there.
is this something that can wait until the next meeting, or do you find this to be an urgent
Well,
matter?
I guess I would think it's urgent because I just don't want to go past that deadline. It's about a month. I don't know enough of how the next month of April is going to be. I don't know if more people are going to try to get in exemptions, or if there's going to be some rejections, things like that. Next meeting's in 2 weeks, so I can probably try to work with you and give you some numbers and try to see where we're at there. But I would hope they could get some extra hours so that we can just make sure that we're not behind when it comes to it, and then it falls on me. So that's why I just want to make sure I'm not setting up the office for failure when that's what they're asking me
So
for.
would the board be comfortable with saying, as of this moment, not to exceed the 2 weeks that wasn't paid out to Michael Milks? And then we could have a more definite number tomorrow from finance? Because that's budget neutral right there. So it's not an increase, not a transfer. It's just money unused. And then we'll have a more definite number tomorrow, and then we discuss as a board if we want to shift numbers around for long term.
I would be fine with
Roughly
that.
2 pay periods.
One pay period, I believe it's 2 weeks.
A one pay period. I'd be fine with that.
Just one last comment. I know you had mentioned about, informing citizens and doing like a slideshow or something like that. If you were to do something like that, I'd ask if you can somehow coordinate to get it on our website so that
Sure.
residents can access that. Just in today's day and age, I think that'd be a way to,
Yeah.
for people to access.
I'll ask IT. They know how to do the YouTube stuff. So if somebody
Town's
from,
Facebook page and all that stuff.
Even if it's just a slideshow, it doesn't have to be you on there
yeah, just,
necessarily, but just something that can go on there so where we can direct people.
Yeah, we can put it up on the website under, assessments or something. They can click on it. And
Yeah.
tell you what do they do at the assessor's office, and then, we can get some people.
Couldn't they
to
put it
just
on the
understand.
main page too? Like if they put it in and it'll be on the main page as like a bulletin?
Yeah, I'm sure it could. I guess that's an IT question, but I can ask them, and I'm sure they know how to, stick it in there. And I don't know how to do it, but
I think clerk handles the website.
oh, then I'm gonna,
Something we could put, there's an announcements section on the main page. We could put a
Yeah.
link there to get access to it.
and that way, people have a better heads up. It's a real nice slideshow. It was like I didn't make it. It's made by the assessors little organization they have to get people to better understand what the office does, because there's a lot of basic questions. Like a number of people are like, "You collect my taxes," and they don't. They don't collect your taxes, and they also don't make the taxes. They just assess the value of the properties. So.
Even going forward, come that time, even if we had a flyer with, a fact sheet of questions that they may get. So when they get their tax bill, we're just putting that extra piece of paper in there.
Yeah, and I believe we have one for this year.
I
So
don't know if we do that, but
maybe I can leave some on the extra tables, because I did see that. I think they've done them in the past, but I have one, so I can you can put them out here in town hall or in front of the office. So that way people have a better understanding.
All right, well,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else?
That's all.
All right. I know we went well over the
Thank
3
you.
minutes, but we had one speaker signed up. Is there anyone else that wants to speak before we move on? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to move on to the board discussion section. Is there any old business board members would like to discuss this evening?
I was going to bring this up. Can I speak?
Sure, Councilmember Benchkowski.
I audited the claims yesterday on the warrant, and we're getting charged sales tax on a lot of things, and we shouldn't be paying sales tax. So one of them was the work boots I had seen. So I do have an issue with that, and I think we have to be diligent to review that over and our department heads and let them know that we shouldn't be charged sales tax.
Generally speaking, yeah, we shouldn't be charged sales tax. I don't know if the boot situation, where if the employees are buying them, where the employees are paying the sales tax and we're just reimbursing up to 125. I know the employees themselves don't have the tax exemption, and the town's not buying the boots directly. So that may be the case for that one.
Mhm.
I think that's the situation there.
I'll look again, check. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else under old business?
last we did discuss about 4th of July, and I think it's probably best to wait until next year to try anything different. However, I would like to at least explore, maybe since you're organizing it, if we could have food trucks or something like that, even on the 4th for, the customer or residents to come up. And I mean, they're paying for it, a service, but again, just something. So once that parade's done, there's just nothing there.
We're at, we have some time to do something like that, possibly on the 4th, but it might be better to do something like that next year and have conversations this year with PD, with Parks, with some other folks to see what the bandwidth is this year for what the things they're working on over the holiday weekend. But if it's something they feel they can cover this year, we might be able to give it a shot. I think it's something that we should talk about and maybe give it a shot in 2026. I don't know what you think. Maybe leave it alone this year and then go, add something in next year. But we can start those conversations now if you want. And we have some time. If the consensus from the other people that we need, that we depend on to make these things successful is, yeah, we can make it work. We may have some time to bring in some food trucks and that. I know that we booked some of our food trucks well over a month ago, I want to say 2 months ago, and as you know, their calendars fill up. So I'm sure there's some out there that are available on the 4th, but I don't know what's left, but I'm not opposed. I'll say that. All right. Anything else before we move on? All right. Next up is new business on the agenda. Anybody have new business? I guess this is more pertaining to old business, but the email came after the last meeting. This is about the fireworks for July 4th. There was a quote that got sent out to the board Monday, maybe it was Friday. Did everybody have a chance to at least take a quick look at that? Because I know at the last meeting we were talking about making sure that everybody's okay with continuing on with skylighters, or if there was a majority desire to go get other quotes for that.
I think I asked for some more information, how long of a show it was. I didn't get an answer.
Okay, yeah, that was about 15 minutes. I'm sorry I didn't get an answer to that, but we were able to get a detailed breakdown of the cost and how they're applied to particular parts of the display or particular fireworks. Councilman
My
Pulaski?
concern about this is it does not follow the procurement policy in place. So if we're not practicing what we're preaching and we're requiring department heads to get 3 bids over a certain dollar amount, and then this board circumvents that because, we voted on it, that's a concern of mine. They're not a sole source. There are other agencies out there for fireworks, so I'd recommend getting the 3 bids. But if the board as a whole decides, hey, this is the one to go with, then let's go with it. But let's be ready for the backlash of saying, it's good for the goose isn't good for the gander.
Especially that we got the time now, I would have to concur with Councilmember Pulaski's words on that. I think it'd probably be just best if we at least attempt to get 3 estimates. That way, there's no special rules for anybody outside of the procurement process.
Anyone else on this? All right. Next up is the consent agenda announcement.
For that, I have something I wanted to bring up too. Couple things. Sanitation and recycling. I know that's been a big topic for a long time. You got 40 people and you spend this much money, and I look at the sharp increase that we've spent on our recycling contract, and I think it'd be worth it to at least see if it would be a cost savings to entertain doing that in-house, whether we sit down with the union presidents and, see if that's something they'd be willing to explore as well with sanitation. I think we should at least do our diligence to see if it's something that could be beneficial for the town, especially when you see such a sharp increase in that. And if we have just one shift right now and everybody complains they're only working until 11 or 12 or whatever it may be, it's something that they could make more money potentially, working another shift. But I think it's something that we should at least explore. That's my thoughts on that. I don't know what anybody else feels.
I agree.
Supplement.
I agree because I think I did bring it up to you.
Last week, right?
Yep, about that. And then did you mention that another town?
I could be wrong, but I thought West Seneca took over their recycling in the last few years, or maybe they've always done it. We have to. I was mentioning the idea of potentially doing a field trip about that, but
Yeah. But I think that's something that we should look into and entertain it again.
taking on something like that, obviously we would need to make sure we have an adequate number of vehicles and employees, and then we would still be responsible for dump costs, just like we are with garbage right now. And if we can work it out with the TCA in a way that would make the labor side affordable, and we can figure out our plan with trucks that makes that affordable too, because the truck costs are built into the recycling bid. I mean, it's not cheap.
Two
Yeah.
right now, unless I'm mistaken.
And
Anybody else know that? recycling trucks?
About them. Don't you need a special truck if you're going to do recycling?
We have
I thought we had two of them right now.
got a total of, I believe it's 16 trucks in the sanitation fleet. I know we took delivery of one recently, and at any given time, there's one or two of them that are having issues, but especially in the summer, basically every truck that we have is at work. You might have one or two that are sitting in the garage. You've got your 8 that are out working the routes for the day. You may have a backup truck there, and then you've got your grass pickup trucks that are working too. So
we do
part
have
of the
two
answer-
recycling trucks?
I don't believe we have any recycling trucks. Do we have trucks that we can use toward recycling? We'd have to have a conversation about grass pickup, because if we changed how we did that, or if we stopped doing that, that would free up some vehicles that we wouldn't have to worry about and maybe take over to the recycling side of things. But it's this is one of those discussions where it comes with an upfront cost, and if we're willing to make it as a board, it could provide us some long-term savings, but in the short run, it certainly won't. And I'm not saying any particular reason why that won't happen. That's just math. It's going to be a big investment up front, and it could be worthwhile down the road compared to alternatives.
I had been told that there were 2 recycling trucks purchased a couple of years ago and were sitting in the garage. I never physically saw them. That's just what I was told, so I don't know. I don't know why you would if you're not doing it. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but that's just what I was told. I don't know if they're there or not. I don't know.
Councilmember Benchkowski, then we'll go over to Mr. Pilarski.
We haven't done our own recycling for 10 to 15, 15 years. We used to, when we negotiated with the union. That was way before I was supervisor or even on the board. So I can't understand why we would have 2 recycling trucks sitting there. However, my suggestion might
Take a
be
field trip.
is to, for some cost savings, is work with the union to possibly do grass pickup. Because right now, the way the language is in the TCEA contract, that our regular workers cannot pick up grass. And that's where we have a hard time with the part-timers. And so that might be another thing to look at. That might be cheaper or more cost savings than the recycling. I don't know, although the recycling is quite a bit.
Big cost of doing recycling in-house is going to be labor. I mean, we would have to negotiate in a way to make that affordable, but we're talking salary, benefits, healthcare. I mean, we all know this.
Yes, and,
And it adds up really quick, right? Councilmember Pilarski.
I think this is you got to start discussion somewhere. So this is awesome that we're even talking about it. But there's a lot of pieces to it to keep in mind as we talk about this and unravel it is the union contract itself, what's allowed to be picked up and what's not, grass clippings being one, does recycling fall under that as well? Another thing is, like Supervisor said, ongoing cost or new costs, like the new trucks. Can we mix recycling and use a garbage truck for that, that we just used in the morning and then dumped? I don't know those answers. Is that an issue? But also keep in mind, I believe we still have 4 more years left on the current contract with the recycling company. So is that something we can get out of, or do we got to wait till the end of that as well? Does that buy us some time to still explore this as an option and talk about it? So there's a lot of pieces to it, but now's a good time to start talking about it, especially if we've got 3-4 more years of that contract and start getting things in place ready for it.
Right. Yeah.
Because you want to make sure you're not going to get a penalty if you leave early. Yeah, I agree.
A lot of the contracts we have, there are exit clauses. But like you said, it comes with a penalty. So
At one point, we moved to, a private company and, seeking a cost savings, but now you're just bound by whatever charges they tell you you're going to pay. I mean, look at this contract we just got now. I don't think there's anybody that's like, wow, that's great.
we had 2, maybe, I believe we had 3 bidders on it. No, there were 2.
Two.
There were 2 bidders on it. There were 3 companies we were hoping would bid and only 2 did. And, 30 years ago, there was a lot of competition in this space, just like the ambulances, right? What we were talking about last night. There was a lot more competition in the ambulance space 30, 40 years ago. That's just not there now. And, when you have 1 or 2 choices of a private company, it really gets you to think, are we better off going directly?
The big problem with the recycling is it's an unfunded state mandate. So the state's requiring us as a municipality to collect recyclables, but then there's less return on those recyclables for the company itself because China's not taking them and all that stuff. So their costs are going up and they're passing that cost on to us. And like you said, we got hit with, I think, $1 million increase on the last contract. And it's only going to probably go up as recycling, goes down as less and less companies take it on. So let's explore it. Mm-hmm.
Don't make money on recycling. It's just a service offered.
Anybody else under new business before we move on? All right, thank you, guys. We're going to go on to the consent agenda announcement. A consent agenda is contained in this meeting. The consent agenda is designed to assist making the meeting shorter and more efficient. Items left on the consent agenda may not be discussed when the consent agenda comes before the town board. If any council member wishes to discuss the consent agenda item, please tell me now. I will remove the item from the consent agenda and it will be added as a separate resolution item. Councilmember Benchkowski.
Resolution 2025-186. And I had it written down here. 2025-209. 209.
209.
186 and 209.
Okay, I will add to that 187. Any other council members?
I would like to, because seeing where 209 is going, I don't know what direction that's going. 207, because I think they go hand in hand.
Okay. I have 186, 187, 207, 209. Are there any others? Madam Clerk, can you read that list back one more time?
We have resolutions 2025-186, 2025-187, 2025-209, and, I'm sorry, 2025-207. 207 and 209.
Okay. Hearing no others, I think we're all set, Clerk.
That being said, I need a motion and a second to approve the meeting agenda.
I'll second.
I'll offer the motion. Aye.
We have one item that was on the table. Is there a motion or a second to move resolution 2025-168 to the table?
I will second.
By Councilmember Filipski, seconded by Supervisor Nowak. All in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 2025-168 is sponsored by Supervisor Nowak, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. Haley Whipperman of Depew, New York, being and hereby is appointed to the contingent permanent position of clerk typist in the Building and Plumbing Department in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Cheektowaga Employee Association, effective March 25th, 2025.
On the question, we have a competing resolution with 207 within the packet. It's my understanding that that resolution 207 is the desired item here, and this is an item that, it's probably legislative. The best bet here is a request to poll. Yeah, and you would second that? We would like the item polled now that it's off the table.
Agreement with that, Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
We're going to move on to the rest of the consent agenda items. I need a motion and a second to approve all the items on the consent agenda, including the meeting minutes of March 11th, 2025, and the special meeting of March 14th, 2025. This will include resolution items 2025-186 through 211, and recognizing that we have pulled 186, 187, 207, and 209. I need a roll call vote. Councilmember Bukowski? Councilmember Benchkowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Filipski?
Yes.
Councilmember Jazinski?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilarski?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Nowak?
Yes.
I apologize, I didn't get the first and second on that.
I'll first.
I'll second.
All items on the consent agenda have been approved. We're going to move on to the resolution items. We are starting with Resolution 2025-186, sponsored by Supervisor Nowak, seconded by Councilmember Bukowski. The following vouchers and warrants submitted to the town of Cheektowaga prior to March 25th, 2025 are hereby approved and made part hereof.
All right. On the question, Councilmember Benchkowski.
Yes. During my review of the warrant, I still have an issue with this Viking Clives claim that's on the warrant. I don't see a bid or resolution approving the purchase of these 2 one-way plows for the highway department. That should be included. Any resolution that was approving, and actually we have in front of us the highway law. 142A, the town superintendent may, with the approval of the town board, purchase equipment, tools, and other implements to be used for highway maintenance, construction, etc. Also, it mentions in 1B about the approval of the town board shall not be necessary for the purchase of equipment less than $1,000. Well, this is $18,000. So I think we should have had a board resolution approving the purchase.
These are the Viking Clives one-way plows.
One-way plows, yes.
We do have the highway superintendent here. Would you like to approach and speak to the item? The question is about 2 one-way plows, a purchase that comes to a dollar amount about $18,900. And the question is about, is there a board resolution that supports that purchase?
Those were purchased with the trucks as part of the rig when we bought that.
Yeah, can you approach the podium, please?
Those were purchased before I got in. They came in after I was here. Them one-way plows.
Okay.
They came with the new Kenworth and whatever additions they had before I took office.
All right.
Okay.
So it was part of the purchase of a truck.
Well, when you buy a plow truck,
Mhm.
you got to buy the components and have the truck put together. Otherwise, it's not a plow truck.
There's not just one charge for that anywhere, or
Depends on, if you want to get the
typically?
typical funnel plow with it. We're trying to change the way we plow roads where we can deflect snow the opposite direction. So if I have a road like North Creek, to improve plowing for the residents, we like to pull the material away from their yards and put it towards the parkside. We do it on Standard Parkway. We do it where we can, where applicable. We try to put those trucks in those parts. We're changing things up, not trying to do it the same old way. We're just trying to improve what we do.
Appreciate that, Rick. Councilmember Jazinski.
So was the purchase of those trucks and the plow from the same vendor? Or were they from 2 separate vendors?
I would have to go back and look, Mike.
I understand it wasn't, this was before
Yeah,
your time.
right.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this.
Yep.
So did we have an equipter then take the new vehicle and then put the plow on? Or did the plow provider equip the truck with this?
Yeah, I think the plow provider equipped it. That's standard.
So you had no control over this, you're saying? Wouldn't you have ordered the trucks first and waited till they came in? That was before you, the
these
trucks.
These were ordered before I took over as highway superintendent.
So are you telling us that you received the trucks and then this part just came in and then they billed us? Is that from my understanding?
I'd have to look. I can't honestly give you that answer. I'd have to go, it's a question because the trucks were purchased pre my time, so.
And then they didn't.
If I could,
They came in when I came in, so.
if I could give
Mr.
you guys
Kraus?
some info, I mean, just looking at, I'm in the accounting system right now, and part of the documentation shows that it was a Sourcewell contract, and the quote date is December 20th of 2023. So, no, it definitely was time, a while ago when it was ordered.
That's not attached to the documentation. I have a email from Judy to Bill Stradman in accounting dated January 6, 2025. Good morning, Bill. As per our conversation for 2024 purchase order, please see attached copy of the quote for 2 plows. It's on Sourcewell. So apparently it wasn't ordered in 2023. It was just ordered in January 6, 2025.
Okay, that's probably where we wore some out and we picked some new plows up and we're switching over from the funnels to the directional plows. So it's through the Sourcewell bid, so it's the cheapest price we can get.
I understand that, but in order to use town funds, you needed the board to approve that purchase. Whether it's on Sourcewell or it's another piggybacking contract, you always need the board approval for anything over $1,000.
This wasn't, okay, so if it wasn't ordered in 2023 with a truck, and you said you just ordered it to replace something?
Well, okay, they wear out plows.
Right.
You've seen the pictures of all the rotted out plows. You stop by and see our equipment. Those plows were probably set up, this is a while ago, so I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork. But if it's something that I did wrong, I'll correct it.
Yeah, right. I know you will, but if we're going to be following, like Councilmember Pilarski mentioned, the procurement policy for one should mean for all. So I think that this thing needed to be approved by the board first before you had ordered the plows.
Mr. Kraus, does this particular purchase go back to, was it originated in the end of 23? Or was it the contract that was originated?
I mean, the documents that are attached it's a quote of a dated 12/20/23. It says the quote was valid until 1/19 of 24.
Okay. And what was purchased was off of that quoted price?
That's what it looks like, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Ended until 24. Why would they hold that same price for, I don't know, a year later?
They were purchased through Sourcewell, not even through what you got a quote. Mr. Kraus, you said you have a quote from.
Because it's a Sourcewell contract.
All right, but I think we're talking about 2 different things, because Rick said there was one that was attached to 2 trucks or a truck. And then there are additional plows you wanted, so we're not sure where these are connected.
Let me dig into it. I'll get the information to you and we can sort it out.
I
Okay.
appreciate it, Rick.
Yeah.
Thank
What do
you.
we do with the old plows, the old blades? Do we replace the blades or do we replace the
No,
full plow?
We take the old blades and we'll actually save them, pull like the arms off. Usually just the funnel is gone. And then we'll catch a manhole, we'll catch something, bend something. We take parts off of those and just keep replacing them.
Resourceful.
We recycle them the best we can until there's nothing left, then they go in the scrap pile.
And speaking of this scrap pile, where are we bringing all that now?
Right now, I got 2 bids.
Because there's a ton over there.
No, there's more than a ton.
It's a lot. Yeah.
Is it? Yeah.
Didn't
And
we
I-
just
I know-
unload some of it too? Just
Yeah, we're
recently?
almost done. I'll have numbers for you. Actually, numbers went up almost 2.5 times since I started that pile. So waiting was the thing to do since somewhat know a little bit about that business. We did well for the town.
So what did they pay you? Check, they give you a check?
They give a check to the highway department.
And where's that? Is that deposited into Barn Kraus?
I don't have it yet.
Oh, okay.
I'm not finished with the project.
All right, because you seem to know a dollar amount. That's why I thought you already
No,
got.
I know the price per ton
Oh, okay.
that was quoted.
Mhm.
So I picked the highest price quoted.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
okay.
We're good. Are there any other questions on the warrant and vouchers for 2025-186?
Well, I'd like to amend that then, again, and pull the Viking Clive's $18,907.40 and find out exactly what happened here.
There's an additional charge for 486.48. Did you want to do anything with that one?
No,
Or
that
would
can stay because that's under $1,000, so,
I just wanted to make sure.
okay.
So it sounds, there's a desire for an amendment. I'm taking it as a motion for a proper amendment. Is there a second on that?
Before we go into the amendment, let's say for the sake of argument, we find out where it goes, or let's say it was done improper. I mean, we're talking about process, which we have to address with Rick if it was done wrong. We still have a bill to pay. I mean, they're on plows, I'm assuming right now, so now they're used. We can't not pay our bill, and I get that, hey, a process wasn't followed, but now we're gonna change up the whole warrant piece and change up the numbers and then redo this. I mean, bottom line is we're responsible for this in one way or another. I think if it was not followed the process, that's where we need to address it.
I have had this conversation so many times on my time on this board as people say, oh yeah, look through the warrant, tell me if there's anything, that stands out. And yeah, just let me know. But it's a service rendered already, or you already received the product. What are we going to do?
Correct.
So
We're handcuffed. We're liable for that purchase anyways, one way or another, whether it was authorized or not, we still have to pay it.
There's got to be something that changed with the process. And I, in my opinion, thought the procurement policy that was updated recently would help with that. And again, I'm not saying because this happened before your time, but going forward, I mean, I bet my bottom dollar that this will happen again at some point. So it's something we as a board need to discuss. And the clerk's shaking her head. I'm not sure why, does it look that way, but I think that's a good idea. Maybe she doesn't think otherwise, but I think it's important to have that discussion so that, the thousands of dollars aren't being thrown out the window without people watching. You're supposed to be looking at this money. That's our job. So I think we need to have serious discussion amongst us to find a way we can correct that, because just saying, oh, if you see anything on the warrant, let me know, that doesn't change anything.
I agree. We need some type of oversight. I'm sure there's probably right that Rick and the highway department possibly do need this stuff, but we have a procurement process for a reason. And when people aren't following the procurement process, what is the recourse on it? Because there is a stipulation on there that says that, could be investigated. I mean, you're putting yourself at risk. So, my suggestion would be is everybody follow the rules, and then, there'll be no need for some, we are the watchdogs for the people of the town of Cheektowaga, and I think it's important, especially a sizable purchase of $18,000+ to me, that definitely puts a red flag up, and I definitely think that we should amend this resolution as Councilmember Bukowski had requested. Or, yeah. Benchkowski. I'm thinking of Barb. It's kind of like a hype.
All right, so Councilmember Benchkowski.
Just one last thing about the procurement policy, I just pulled it up. There is in bold letters at the bottom of the policy, failure to adhere to the aforementioned policy is prohibited and may result in disciplinary action by the town board consistent with any collective bargaining agreements. Yes, Rick's an elected official, but he still needs to follow town law and highway law. So I'm not sure if we can censure him or whatever. I'm not saying to do that tonight, but there has to be something to make people accountable to follow the procurement policy, especially when you're dealing with a lot of money like this.
That's where I think also it should be brought up when you have department head meetings to reiterate our policy and make sure all the department heads understand that.
Well, Supervisor Nowak does have his department head meetings. Is that something that we can maybe address during your department head meetings?
Something we addressed at our last department head meeting, since the policy was changed again following that. When we have the department head meeting coming up in early April, that'll be taken up among a number of other items. We got to introduce everybody to our new HR director, Tammy, among a number of different orders of business. We'll put that on the list. So going back to the warrant, I heard a comment and I heard a supporting comment that I took as a desire for an amendment in a second. Should we act on that as a board? Councilmember Benchkowski, do you want to make a proper motion to amend
Yes, I'd like to
warrant?
make a motion to amend the warrant to eliminate the Viking Clive's expenditure for $18,907.40 removed from the warrant. That's my amendment.
Is there a second? There's a second from Mr. Jazinski. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The resolution is amended.
Coming up with a new amount here for you.
Right at the-
Okay, council members, so resolution 2025-186 was amended to remove the Viking Clive expenditure of $18,907.40. That was approved unanimously, so this changes the resolution. The capital fund line is now $9,541,413.17. Amending the resolution total to the warrant is $27,294,207.11.
294,407.11.
27,294,207.11.
All in favor on the motion as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Resolution 2025-186 is carried. Resolution 2025-187 is sponsored by Councilmember Benchkowski, seconded by Councilmember Jazinski. Chapter 220 of the Code of the Town of Cheektowaga presently permits certain persons with disabilities, certain senior citizens, certain veterans, certain converted condominiums, and certain reconstructed, altered, or repaired 1, 2, or 3 family residences and volunteer firefighters and volunteer ambulance workers to obtain partial tax exemptions and exclusions from real property that they own. 487 of the real property tax law of the state of New York provides municipalities in the New York State to permit tax exemptions within its jurisdiction with respect to any solar, wind energy system, farm waste and energy system, hydroelectric energy system, fuel cell electric generating system, micro combined heat and power generating equipment system, electric energy storage equipment or electric energy storage system, or fuel flexible linear generator electric generating system system constructed subsequent to the effective date of this law. This town board feels that it is in the best interest of the town of Cheektowaga to exercise its right to opt out. A public hearing will be held on the 8th day of April 2025 at 5:30 p.m. at the Town Hall, 3301 Broadway, to consider the advisability of adopting intro to local law number 1 of 2025.
Right, on the question, on this, I have no issue for a public hearing, so I'll be a yes on this, but I just wanted to ask a clarifying question on the text of the law itself. I know when we get local laws at times, they can be lengthy or complex, and we switch some things out between a public hearing and a final that is grammatical or maybe a minor change on that. Is it the belief of the sponsors that the text of this local law is going to remain intact through the public hearing to a final vote, or is there some thought that we may need to make some adjustments? I just had a question for the sponsors on that. What after the public, like, is there a thought that we're going to keep this as is after public hearing, or up and down, or to change it? Councilmember Michkowski?
Thank you, Supervisor. Well, it's hard to say until we hear the public speak. I think that's with any law, we have to show them, we have to present it, and then if we need to make changes, we can make it after. But I think that with the help of the town attorney's office, it's a good law for us. It's taking the burden away from the taxpayers that would have to pick up the exemption. If a multi-million-dollar company is granted an exemption, that's a big hardship on the taxpayer. So,
Understood. I mean, if you get feedback, you want to tweak it a little bit. It's like, I'm looking at the paragraph C, it's like, is there a situation where it's going to be an all or nothing proposition with the entire list, or depending on the public hearing, would there be the possibility? I don't know if you know, and I don't mean to put anyone on the spot. I don't know the answer to this.
well, I was originally wanted to keep that open, but I was told that we have to all or nothing, all solar
okay.
farms or none. So,
Okay, and so it's like, so 487 applies to all of these technologies or none?
I would
mean,
have to check.
Okay.
So, town attorney, do you want to speak on that?
They don't have to apply to all of them or none. This was a local law that we researched and found in another local municipality that seemed to serve our purposes. The all or none, though, is with respect to each of these individual energy suppliers. For example, you can't opt out with respect to large scale solar installations, but then opt back in for small scale on my roof, or what a small commercial operator might be doing to I don't know, if they're using it to energize their business. So that is an all or nothing. Solar is all or nothing.
All I needed to know. Any other comments from council members? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Madam Clerk, do you need a roll call vote? There was an abstention.
This is Resolution 2025-187. Councilmember Bukowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Benchkowski?
Yes.
Councilmember Filipski?
I abstain.
Councilmember Jazinski? Councilmember Pilarski?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
Yes.
Supervisor Nowak?
Yes.
Motion is passed, 6-0. Resolution 2025-207 is sponsored by Councilmember Thompson, seconded by Supervisor Nowak. Haley Whipperman of Depew, New York, being and hereby is appointed to the provisional position of account clerk in the Justice Courts in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Cheektowaga Employee Association, effective March 26, 2025.
All right, on the question?
So the reason why I pulled that one is just because she falls on resolution 209 that was pulled. So I don't know the intent of 209 being pulled, if it had to do with her or not. So if she is appointed on 207 and then 209 doesn't go through, she would have two titles, one a part-time title and one a full-time title. So I just want to make sure.
And she can't hold both, right?
And she can't hold both, correct.
That understood, and thanks for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'll go to the sponsor. The intent here, council member, is for us to appoint Ms. Whipperman to this position this evening. And where the board is on this, we intend to terminate part-time employment in justice court in order to allow for the full-time appointment, correct?
Correct.
And so I think we're within our rights here and with a common understanding to pass this resolution now and address any issues that come up in 209 if for some reason this doesn't pass this evening and what that means.
Okay, because this 209 was pulled by Councilmember Benjakowski, so that's why I was just wondering if it was the same person in conflict here or not.
I just had a question.
Okay, so I'm good with 207.
I appreciate that. Yeah, if for some reason 209 doesn't pass, we can always backdate the part-time termination and make sure the books are clear. So all in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
Moving on to Resolution 25-209, sponsored by Councilmember Pilarski, seconded by Supervisor Noack. Following individual being and hereby is transferred from part-time to regular part-time, and the following seasonal and/or part-time employees being and hereby are terminated.
All right, on the question, I know Councilmember Benchkowski had a question. The floor is yours.
On the town clerk, you wanted to add a part-timer. Is this an addition or is this somebody taking somebody's place?
No, she's currently employed as a part-time person, moving to regular part-time.
I'm sorry, what was it moving to?
Currently in one of the part-time spots.
Yes, so why do we need this resolution?
Because there's 3 people, if you notice, because you're looking at the, I'm sure you're looking at the budget there. There are 3 people noted in one part-time spot with total hours of 1072, and there's 1 part-time spot noted for 1273, and I would like her in the 1273. I was told I needed to do this resolution in order to move her to that space.
Yeah, well, I think there's some restrictions in the collective bargaining agreement, the TCEA, with how many people you can have working over the maximum number and be considered part-time. And this might be in violation of that.
It does say in there that she can only work 1,040 hours, and that is the collective bargaining agreement.
I guess the question would be, you mentioned you wanted her to be in that position with 1,073 hours instead. Was that correct?
I did want her in that position, yes.
So I guess what is the difference between that and if she's working no more than 1,040 hours?
Because at 19 hours, at 52 weeks, she gets a total of 988 hours. At more in this position, she can work 1040 instead of 988. She can work more hours per week, but cannot go over the 1040 total hours for the year. So when I have staff off, she can work an extra day.
Okay, because there's only 2 things budgeted for. 1 part-timer for a total of 1,253 hours, and you have 3 budgeted for 1,073 hours.
Correct, and I only have 3 people, 3 part-timers in the office right now. 1 is vacant.
So how are you going to split these up on the budget? Because like I said, you have one at 1,253. So is that the spot she's taking? You're going to have to go over that again. So, because you have 3 at 1,073 hours.
Correct. And the other one is at what?
1,253.
Correct.
Is that the vacant one again?
Yes.
Working less than that?
According to civil service, she can't work more than 1040. At one point, if you look at these numbers, the 1073, these were tax office people and they were allowed to work over the allotted hours during tax time. So they did put in more than the civil service allowed. What I'm told now is that they cannot. So I have to work my employees into the 988 and the 1040 numbers, although there's more hours or more money there because of the number of hours.
It's hard to tell from the resolution then if you're going to be within the budget, budgeted amount.
That again?
It's hard to tell by this resolution, and then when we look at the budget, if you're going to stay within the budgeted amount.
Why is that? It's a total of 1,253 hours. She can't work more than 1,040 hours.
Mm-hmm.
How am I over the budget?
All right, because the way you mentioned you were going to be reworking everybody's hours. That's why I'm asking that question.
At 19 hours times 52 is 988 hours in the year. They're currently budgeted at 1,073, so there's already extra hours there. This is 1,040 hours total. There's money budgeted for 1,253 hours, which means she will not go over the budget.
I think these are fair questions. I just wanted to bring up the last half of the first result of this resolved. If you go past the 39 hours, 1040 hours, it says in compliance with civil service laws and regulations, as well as the provisions of the town's collective bargaining agreement between the town of Cheektowaga and the town of Cheektowaga Employees Association. So to my mind, if we were to pass this resolution as written this evening and there's still confusion or misunderstanding, the resolution says we're going to work it between the bargaining agreement with the town and TCEA. So at that point, we can clear up any confusion there might be with the TCEA and get on the same page there and stick within the bounds of the contract. Because hours-wise, it says, or 1,040 hours on a yearly basis. It says one or the other. Maybe language to say not to exceed, whichever is less, or not to exceed 1040 hours. Something like that. Would that address the concerns? Because I think the language in the bottom half largely deals with this, but I can see some hesitation to want to make clear we're going to stick at 1040 hours or less. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Were you talked to by anyone from the TCEA?
I had a brief conversation with Greg this afternoon, Greg Magnazuski at TCEA this afternoon about this. And what I told him is, that the way I read this is, it's any issues that we may have pertaining to the resolution, we can sort it out after the fact. And my thinking on that was because the second half of this. So if there's an issue going at passage of this resolution that we have to sort out, the clerk, Greg, and I can have a conversation and sort those issues out.
Okay, so you'd keep us informed, and if we have to amend this sometime in the future,
if
to avoid a grievance or going to arbitration over part-time.
We shouldn't go to arbitration over something like
I
this,
agree.
but absolutely, it's, we can work out, as it says in the bottom half, within the provisions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the town and the TCEA. So.
Okay, all right. And then I'm fine with it.
That, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
That is the end of our resolution items. We do have items that were submitted late, so I need a motion and a second to waive the rules to include resolution items 2025-213, 214, 215, 216, and 217. Do I have a motion?
I'll offer the motion.
Second it.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. We're moving on to Resolution 2025-213, sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. The supervisor being and hereby is authorized to sign the attached memorandum of agreement between the Town of Cheektowaga and the Town of Cheektowaga Employees Association.
All right. Just a brief on this. There's an attached MOA within the agenda packet there. Back in October, the town board approved a resolution to create the title of senior planner. That was within a resolution creating 3 titles. So I think Councilmember Bukowski's email earlier in the week asking where resolution, I believe it was 212 initially, where that went, and that was abandoned because that was redundant. What this does is, if approved by the board, it's an MOA that would set the salary or the hourly for the position of senior planner. Within the 2025 budget, there was funding set aside under building and plumbing department for the title of senior planner. So we do have money within the budget to fund a particular title. The idea that I have in mind with this position is to give some assistance to our planning department. One of the things that I've found broad agreement with on this board is the idea of doing more things in-house. You know, whether it's emails you've gotten from me or private discussions or public discussion. I'm glad to hear that there's things we want to do to make more use of the people and the resources that we have within reason. And when it comes to our planning department, I think we need to have a little bit more support there and have an opportunity for the department to be more proactive in looking at some of those empty storefronts and commercial spaces we have, and talk to the developers, the property owners, the business community more broadly to try to get ahead of the game on what we do about that stuff. I mean, government, for the most part, is reactive by definition, but we do have those opportunities to be proactive, and this is one of them that with an extra position in that department, it's something that can help alleviate the tax burden on the residential side if we're doing a good job being proactive. So that's why I have this submitted this evening. Any other council members? All right. On the question, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Madam Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Resolution 2025-213, we are doing a roll call vote. Councilmember Bukowski.
No.
Councilmember Benchkowski.
No.
Councilmember Filipski. No. Councilmember Jazinski.
No.
Councilmember Pilarski.
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson.
No.
Supervisor Noack.
Yes.
Motion is defeated, 2-5. Resolution 2025-214, sponsored by Councilmember Jazinski, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. The supervisor being and hereby is authorized and directed to execute the aforementioned intermunicipal agreement with Erie County, subject to town attorney approval for the funding of benches in Town Park. Erie County Legislator Frank Tadaro has secured $2,500 in grant funds from the 2025 Erie County budget.
All right, on the question? Councilmember Thompson?
Want to comment on that, and I want to thank Legislator Tadaro for conversations that he and I had about this, and we had discussions about grant monies that were made available, and he asked if there was anywhere that, we could use funding, and it wasn't, a lot, but it's very, appreciative of the funds he was able to secure for us. And I reached out to our Parks Department, our department head at that time, John Shashelski, and asked him what were some of those needs that, he was looking for in the department. And I feel like that was a great place to be able to put some of that funding, and had a conversation with Councilmember Filipski about a gentleman that he had a discussion with, and he was wondering about a park bench in front of his home. He lives, right near the park, and it was taken down and because it was deteriorating, I believe, and never replaced. And that was, I think, a good will to put some nice things back into the park. So, yep. So.
Thanks. Any other council member comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries.
Resolution 2025-215 is sponsored by Supervisor Noack, seconded by Councilmember Pilarski. The town's contract with CMH Company, Inc. for equipment and operators for public works projects has expired on March 24th, 2025. The town's contract with CMH Company for equipment and operators for public works projects being and hereby is extended to June 10th, 2025, until such a time where new equipment and operators for public works project bid is awarded.
All right, on the question, just on this one, I know there were some conversations last week and over the weekend with board members, and I have this up as an opportunity, depending on where the conversation here goes, and I understand the feelings of board members, and I want to work with the board on how to deal with what the town's doing for capital projects and road paving, highway drainage, sanitary, the various other projects we have in place. The town has used its existing public works contract to do emergency sewer repairs and to do work like, just case in point, the David Street Bridge will be relying on our public works contract for portions of that work. A variety of other projects that we have in the pipeline right now around town to assist in order to get those things accomplished. This is the same resolution we had up 2 weeks ago. That was voted down at this time. The only difference here is an extension to June 10th. What I'm just offering as a resolution is an ability to extend the existing public work contract for a little while longer so we can have some discussions about the type of work the board will fund and will not fund in regards to infrastructure this year. 2 weeks ago, I read off a list of the work relating to the DC and Kemp that I'd be on board for supporting. And with that in mind, having this as a stopgap while we finalize the project list. Last year we had discussions as a board and it got into early April. We had a long but productive meeting on April 2nd about what to do in terms of infrastructure work. I know we're going to need a little bit more time to get to the finish line for this year, but this is offered as an opportunity to give us a little bit more time while we finalize a project list and put out another bid, do the notice to bidders, have the bid opening, and re-award a new contract in the future. So that's all I've got to say on this. I saw two hands. I'm going to go to Mr. Thompson first, then Mr. Pilarski.
So for this contract here, I have a couple of questions. So if you need a scope of work defined before putting a bid out, an emergency comes up, is that considered in their scope of work, in their bid?
One of the big concerns I have without a public works contract would be like emergency sewer repairs. As I understand the public works contract, it's a book. And I'm not about to sit here and say I read the thing cover to cover because I didn't. But the understanding I have is that, and maybe Pat Bowen can speak to this, is that emergency sewer repairs are covered within that scope of work.
So to piggyback off of that, if that is the case, you put another bid out with the exact same thing this company has. I've asked that for weeks now and haven't really got a straight answer from a few different people, because if this is, for emergencies, but I'm being told you need a scope of work before putting a bid out, but put the exact same bid out that we have for this existing company. And I'm not really getting an answer from that. Maybe I'm ignorant to the fact, and maybe it's something I don't know. But if somebody can enlighten me to,
I think
why we can't do that.
I think part of the hangup is that every time we do a public works projects bid, it includes the scope of work we're looking to cover for the coming year. So this contract covers work that the town board agreed to cover for the year 2024. We had language in this current contract that covered work for Pleasant, to finish the work on Pleasant that was started last year. We can get to you in a moment. And in the previous year, there were aspects of the bid or the contract that weren't in there because there were different thoughts of which neighborhoods are being worked on, which streets, which types of.
So if we
sanitary,
extend this,
yeah.
then we'd have to modify the contract too then,
If we,
what it sounds.
the thinking, what I'm offering is an extension of the existing Public Works contract while we talk about infrastructure work the board may want to do for 2025.
So
And I've got some I'm sorry to cut you off. I've got some guiding principles on that. I know there's interest in potentially doing Raymond. There's a couple other streets that were mentioned. I know there's some diversity of opinion on the DEC consent order, and I understand that. We're awaiting communication from DEC. It's just a matter of just getting some clear guidance on what work do we want to do here in town this year. Mr. Pilar, I'm sorry to cut you off, and we'll come back to you. Mr. Pilarski and then Mr. Jazinski.
My only concern is the fact that we have no one right now. We saw this coming down the pipeline, and we should
I've been saying this for months.
This should have been put out for bid, and now here we are after the
Months
final
ago.
hours, and we have nobody. And so, God forbid, an emergency pops up, whether it's in our sewers or, let's say, for the sake of argument, we're opening our pool soon. So let's say we find a problem there. How does that affect the pool opening now because we have nobody to do this work? So shame on us as a board for not having this already presented and bid out. But I mean, are we back to, into the corner here? Do we have to have somebody for an emergency, or do we just deal things with as an emergency as they pop up and pay more? That's something for the board to decide on it, but will it have unintentional consequences? I don't know. We don't know that. And maybe no emergencies happen, and we're blessed and good. We, got by it all, but shame on us. This thing should have been addressed a long time ago.
Councilman Jazinski had his hand up.
Yes, I'm just curious, why wasn't a notice to bid sent out? We already said no to CMH. I mean, I'm just curious. We defeated the resolution at the last meeting, and there is still no notice to bid. So here we are in the 11th hour, which it seems to be, a pattern here of this type of stuff happening when, we already said no to CMH. I mean, I don't know what you think is going to change tonight, but, I will definitely be a no on this. And I think that, when we say no to something, we need to regroup and say, okay, do we need a notice to bid to go out? So my question is, why isn't there a notice to bid being sent out when we've already said no weeks ago about this contractor?
Fair question. Answer to the Councilmember Filipski. Would you like to go?
Yeah, I've been involved in this. We've been talking about this since I got a timeline written down. I've sent out an email. January 31st, an answer to the January 29th emails when the meeting started. Going into February, Barb and I met with the supervisor, and we gave him some of our ideas where we were at, and that he was told we would like this to be rebid. Nothing personal against anybody. We're not accusing anybody of anything. It's actually just to try to protect everybody. We have a different procurement policy now. We have better ways to put stuff out to advertise for contractors. BidNet, the fire inspector uses it to demolish houses. That may be another way. In my mind, capitalism, competition brings price down. So in my feeling, after February 14th, the engineering department was notified. Barb sent an email to Mr. Crystal and said, hey, just so you know, we talked to the supervisor. He's the chair of the capital projects committee. Reach out to him. So to be fair, 2-3 weeks, you're talking the end of February, beginning of March. We should have been able to have it bid out 10 business days. We should have been opening it at least now or next week. So we're not trying to stall, and I don't want to say we because it shouldn't be we, it's us. It's us. And to be quite honest, there are numbers floating around everywhere. Millions and millions of dollars. DEC consent orders, grants, CDBG, ARPA, this, that, and the other thing. I don't know. Sometimes I really don't know what's going on here, where the money is, where it went. We have some bond money left over. We don't have bond money left over. We got this much. We don't have that much. I don't get it. I don't know. My whole thing is, I walked around all summer long campaigning. I talked to people. They said, get your house in order. Stop spending. We're at like what, $55 million in outstanding debt, bond debt? Somebody tell me where we're gonna cap it. What's the limit? 100, 200, 300? It's a question. I'm inclined right now to say we're not doing any, no capital projects. I have contracts from West Seneca and Erie County Highway that we could piggyback off of for emergencies for sewer work. That's a fair question, and that's fair. And they asked that question. I get it. They're right. What do we do in an emergency? Who do we call? A stopgap is this. I'm voting no on this. I'm sorry. And it's nothing personal. This should have been taken care of, and it's not on us.
Ultimately, what this comes down to is, again, about when we bid out the contract, it's what work do we plan to cover is written into the bid. And whether it's the email from January 29th, there were meetings.
Like an emergency in the bid.
But not only that, if that's the case, put out a new bid for the work that this company is supposed to complete, and it's the same thing. It's the same bid.
I mean, we get it. You shop at Wegmans all the time. You're comfortable. Maybe try Tops or Aldi, see if you get a better deal once in a while.
Did we put out the public works bid to just do sewer repairs, to say we're not going to do this DEC work this year, that we're not going to do Kemp, that we're not going to do certain aspects of digging and road paving? That's the question that was involved in the March 21st meeting that happened, the meeting prior to that with the three of us.
But also, in the very beginning of the year, we could have put out to bid this contract with the work that would be expiring with them gone, so that we can have another contractor complete that work and also be an emergency. And then you could be sitting here now, almost April, discussing who we're going to put out to bid or change a contract for projects that we're going to do. And yes, there were discussions about having these talks, before budget time. That's absolutely what should happen going forward. But
I agree with that.
Now,
yeah.
And I just don't understand why we couldn't have done this in January, knowing this date was coming.
I need to know what this board wants to do in terms of capital improvements projects,
but without
infrastructure.
And
that was part of the conversation last year, where we extended this contract, and then we did that, and then we had discussions, including that April meeting, and discussions following that about how much road work and sanitary sewer work and storm sewer work we wanted to do.
So I have a question. The question and thing that arises, does that make sense to you, what I'm saying? Or does it not make sense?
I'll say it for myself, if the marching orders are, all we want to do is the emergency sewer work, and we don't want this public works contract to cover any infrastructure at all, knowing that, we can put out a notice to bidders and move ahead. But there's different answers from different council members on the work that they want done when I speak with them. Councilmember Jazinski.
I just would like to piggyback off what Councilmember Filipski said. Yes, we want to get our house of cards in order. We have to become fiscally accountable. But we also want to put a fair bidding process out. So I'm just, you made some very valid points on some projects and stuff like that. I mean, we're obviously going to have to do some work, but we're still uncertain. Right now, I think what we need to do is focus at matters at hand. I'd like to call a roll call vote for this resolution.
Yeah, I know you asked to speak, Councilmember Benchkowski. Before the roll call, we'll give the floor to Councilmember Benchkowski, and then if you want to approach the podium, we'll let you speak after, and then we'll take the vote. That way everyone gets an opportunity to speak. Floor is yours, Councilmember.
Yeah, I've been listening and talking to a lot of the council members, but why are you waiting so late in the year to put that out to bid? Why isn't it done in November, right after the budget? And actually, we should be budgeting for the capital projects then, so that we're ready and put the bids out in November. That's when the contractors are already waiting and taking bids. They're not doing work on the roads at that point. So
I think the highway superintendent can speak to this,
okay.
But to start to answer the question as he's coming up, is over the years, the share of money for capital projects in the budgets there's dollars there. They don't go as far as they used to. So for the capital projects works that we're doing, this has gotten wrapped up within discussions relating to how to finance these things. So do we use some reserve funds? Do we bond? Are there other sources of revenues? I know. So with that, I don't know if you want to
Could I
speak
just
to.
finish one thing
Okay.
also? But I think every individual project has to be bid out separately so we can keep track of it, because right now it's all in one, like Vern is saying, and Tony, it's like nobody can keep track of what's going on and where are we on?
Or you
on
get
these-
paid 3 years later, or,
Exactly.
or they're asking
So-
for $2 million 3 years later.
So we need to have a bid for each individual project.
I
Or
agree.
piggyback. There's a ton of these contractors on the.
Thank you.
Well, I think the biggest misconception everybody's having here, you have to have these projects in place before you can bid them, okay? This isn't where, hey, we're gonna bid this sewer, the capital projects haven't been approved yet. We need that first to get a contractor in to bid those numbers.
So how do we have the contractor in place now then?
We would, okay, our.
That's my
when was
question.
the- when
If
was
I
the
could
end
say
of their
something, Rick,
term?
too.
It was
Hold on.
sometime
Like
in-
One voice, please.
Okay.
Rick, you have the floor, and then we'll
Okay.
give it to Councilmember Thompson.
The contract ended somewhere in March for CMH. It was, somewhere in
It
that.
expired at
direction.
midnight, yes.
24th, I think. But we hire them like for the sewer work throughout the summer, and sometimes they help us in some of the drainage, the big deep stuff where we can't handle it. So they work a small season, and that's where we back them up with our trucks, our materials, our DIs. We do the buying. We just use their labor and machinery costs. It's real simple. It keeps the cost down by doing this. So you get into these projects now, they're done for the year, but their contract lasts 1 year. So when we have a problem, they have to show up under that contract. We have an emergency to dig a sewer that's, 20 feet in the ground. We can't run out there and do that because we don't have the equipment. We don't have the shields. We don't have the expertise. We don't want we'd get fined so bad from OSHA, our head would spin. So this is why they're set up to do this. So
We can't have anybody else do that? There's nobody else?
where? Any other they're
Yeah.
under contract for a whole year. And in that contract is to do those emergencies throughout the year, which isn't great for them because they got to sit there waiting for a phone call.
Rick, if I could just stop you for a second. I do appreciate what you're trying to explain, and personally, I don't think it's up to you to explain this. It's the town engineer that should be answering these
I
questions.
understand.
So if
a
I
lot
could
of it.
stop you and have the town engineer speak on behalf of the questions.
I second that.
I'll basically reiterate what Rick has been telling you. In order for us to issue that public, unless we're doing it just for simply emergency sewer repairs, we need to know what projects we're going to be doing this year so we can identify those projects within the scope of work of the bid specifications in order to comply with New York State requirements.
So this company, CMH, if we extend them to June, we haven't added anything new to their scope of work. So how are we extending them?
We got off to a late start last year because we were late in getting approvals on last year's contract. So we got off to a late start. There are projects like Pleasant Avenue, for instance, that were started last year and have not been finished yet. It would give them an opportunity to go in and finish that project. There's some work yet at the Genesee Street Pump Station. There was a generator that was on back order. That's going to be coming in within the next couple of weeks. They would be able to install the generator for us.
But we can't have another company bid for those projects that are yet to be completed to essentially do the same thing, is my question.
You could, but administratively, that's not easy to do.
May I ask why?
Because you're going to be trying to segregate the work and who did what and who gets paid for which part of it and so forth. And then if there's issues that come up in the future, you have to determine, okay, which work was done by contractor A, which was done by contractor B.
Aren't we already having that problem, though?
Not
I
that
mean,
there's
all
not
the
that many
money's coming
problems.
out of one fund, it seems like, right?
These projects were funded.
Rick,
They didn't
I'm
be
sorry.
finished.
Just let the engineer.
Councilman.
Okay. Do you
What was
want
the
me
question?
up here or do you want me to just walk away?
These are all questions for the town engineer, Rick. You really shouldn't be
Rick,
speaking
if you
on
could stay
behalf.
for just a moment, because I do have a question about
Okay.
Pleasant. But Jazinski had a question. I don't know if you wanted to speak to that. If you remember the question he had.
Could he repeat the question, please?
So I'm just curious. I mean, I appreciate that the highway superintendent is up here speaking, but in all honesty, when it comes to any projects, it is the duty of the town engineer to speak on behalf of these projects, not the highway superintendent. So I think, it kind of puts Rick in an uncomfortable position because, he's looking for answers when I think, it should be the town engineer that should be speaking on behalf of projects. Rick supplies the manpower, he supplies the equipment at the direction of the town engineer.
That's why I'm involved and I understand the project. I was just trying to get clarification to you.
Yeah, the question I had was about Pleasant. I don't know if the council member has a question for the engineer. I'll ask my question about Pleasant with, considering the statement. I was told earlier today that there was a sinkhole in Pleasant around a receiver. Can you tell me about what happened there?
It's the old clay tile system. It's given way. They're opening up, water's infiltrating around it, breaking down the soils, which causes a cave-in. And these are the projects that where we have an emergency. If we want to fix that right, it needs to be done right.
Okay.
I don't think that's the argument, and for some reason it's being misconceived as that.
But this is the reason for the emergency, digs.
Right, and I'm just trying to find out why we can't put another bid out for that.
Well, the reason was because
it's complicated?
These projects were set up already with their numbers in place. So you want to, when theirs ended, that's why they asked for an extension, just to get through, so we had somebody for that emergency. Rebid everything, whatever you got to do, but in meanwhile, if we have a problem, it's got to get done. This way we can back it up. It's a lower cost. If we call a contractor and piggyback up with somebody else, they're not going to let us come in here and give them stone, give them this, give them that. So it's
Rick,
just a simple part.
I appreciate it. Thanks for coming up. What I mean, it's what Councilmember Pilarski?
So I'm looking at this two ways. One, I mean, we knew March 23rd, 2023, that this was going to expire March 24, 2024. And it takes any two board members to put a resolution in for bidding. So I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I mean, I could have put a resolution in with Mike. Vern could have put it in with Brian, Barb with Tony, whatever. Any of us could have put a resolution. So it falls on the whole board why this isn't addressed right here. Instead of passing the buck or pointing fingers or whatnot. We all knew this was coming. We knew it was coming because we even extended it one time and still was not addressed. We're in a position right now that if an emergency happens, we have no one. So that's the way I'm looking at it, is like, what do we do then? Maybe we just address emergencies as they happen, and if they happen, go that route. But this is all of us on this one to eat it.
I think that Councilmember Filipski offered a great solution.
Yeah,
I've offered several.
And not just yesterday. And I think with respect to the supervisor's office, we have meetings with him or involving him. And, again, this is, democracy. We say, okay, we're not looking to do this. We want this rebid. And that's a consensus. And for some reason, 2 weeks later, this resolution shows back up. So I don't know what the intent behind that is, if it's just negligence to say, hey, I know the majority said, hey, we think we should rebid this because, it's in the interest of clarity and fairness. And we say, oh, I think we're just going to do this anyhow.
The hang up.
That's what this looks like.
The hang up is the scope of work. That's why 2 weeks ago, I read off a list of projects I'd be willing to fund. If the directive from this board is just get a notice to bid out for no capital work. If that's what I'm being asked to prepare, and a majority of the board agrees with that, we'll get that together. I'll get that together.
Tony, you said we could piggyback off county and all that, correct? Is that, and you looked into it?
County of West Seneca, New York State allows it, fire districts do it.
Okay, thank you.
I'm on the county website right now. There is an on-call sewer repair. There's a ton of things on here that we could just go right off the county list without having to make our own bid specs up.
My whole thing is, first of all, you're exactly right. And you had brought it up to Supervisor. It should start in November at budget time. But it did, and here we are. So it is what it is. But everybody talks about, where is this money coming from? And how are we going to continue to bond and pay all this interest I'm looking at the bond sheet. We have some that are going out till 2046. Still 30 years left. I don't want my grandkids paying interest and money on a bond because we didn't know what we were doing or we weren't able to get stuff done. Maybe sometimes you got to take a pause. Since I've been here 3 months, it's all I hear is this thrown in my face, the DEC. The DEC is going to close down the town and they're going to fine us $10,000 a day, $20,000 a day, $30,000. I've even heard $40,000 a day. Well, I call the DEC. That ain't true. That's not true. It's a threat they use. It's a threat when you're not complying. We've done this for 10 years. We spent, I don't know how many millions of dollars. Infrastructure is important. I totally agree with it. The can was kicked down the road probably from the 70s and 80s. It should have been addressed, but it wasn't. But it's like, this is like fear factor. It's like, oh, if you don't pay if you don't replace these last 5 miles of sewer at $6.8 million, the DEC is going to come and close you down. And they're going to fine you and they're going to take your dog away and every other thing everybody says. It's ridiculous. We got a grant for $5 million and we got to match it at 1 point whatever something for. I mean, I get all that. You don't want to lose the money that you have. We shouldn't. We shouldn't do that. But my question that nobody can answer is when's enough? And this ain't political for me because I don't care. You don't want to vote for me because I don't want to do capital projects or run bonds? See ya. I don't care. I got 9 months in this chair. If I'm back again, I'm back. If I'm not, I'm not. But I promise people and I talk to people, and I just don't think it's right that we just keep using this credit card bond issue and just keep saying, next time we'll pay it next year. Yeah, we'll pay it next year. We're going to be taking pop cans back to pay stuff pretty soon. That's all I got. Sorry for the rant.
Great point, Councilmember Filipski.
Yeah, earlier on, there was a request for a roll call vote. I'll reiterate that. We have a roll call vote?
Resolution 2025-215, we are doing a roll call vote. Councilmember Bukowski?
No.
Councilmember Benchkowski?
No.
Councilmember Filipski?
Oh.
Councilmember Jazinski?
No.
Councilmember Pilarski?
Yes.
Councilmember Thompson?
No.
Supervisor Nowak?
Yes.
Motion is defeated, 5-2. Resolution 2025-216 is sponsored by Councilmember Jazinski, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. Jordan Pocabello of Chickawaga, New York, being hereby is appointed to the position of Park Maintenance Worker 1 in the Facilities Department in the Parks Division in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Chickawaga Employees Association effective April 7th, 2025.
All right, on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries.
Resolution 2025-217, sponsored by Councilmember Jazinski, seconded by Councilmember Thompson. Robert Wagner of Chickawaga, New York, being and hereby is appointed to the position of Maintenance Worker in the Facilities Department, Building and Grounds Division, in accordance with the terms and conditions of the town's collective bargaining agreement with the Town of Chickawaga Employees Association, effective March 26, 2025.
All right, on the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? It carries.
That is the end of our resolution items tonight. Departmental communications received by the clerk's office include the minutes from the Veterans Affairs Committee meeting of March 5th, 2025, minutes from the Conservation Advisory Council of March 12th, 2025, minutes from Traffic Safety Commission, March 18th, 2025, and general communications included one notice of claim.
All right. Next up on our agenda is comments, and this is public comment time. It's an opportunity for residents to comment on matters involving Cheektowaga. Public comment period shall last 15 minutes max. Each speaker may speak only once, and each speaker shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes speaking time. I have nobody signed up. Would anybody from the public like to speak? Okay.
Last night I was over at Maryvale for their budget meeting. Their budget's going to go up 4% or possibly 1.9%. They don't know just yet. That's just school. 2 weeks before that, we had some teacher, I guess he's a teacher. He's actually a dean in a middle school or a high school, I believe, saying what the kids want. Well, you know what? That irked me. I have wants too. All you people have wants. These people back here have wants, but this is what they want. And I said, you know what? We sacrificed to have the stuff we have today. The home, do we think it was given to me? What money tree did I pull it off of to pay for my house? I had to work. I had to sacrifice. And I told these kids who are sitting there, because 2 of them are seniors, I said, we're paying your tuition here. We are, the residents of Maryvale, and this in every school district. And I asked the board, what state as a state mandates that we have athletic programs? And they said no. Well, you know what? When I was a kid, if we went to the athletic programs in our school, we had to pay for the uniforms. We had to go to work. We had to go sell stuff. You want candy bars? They get it for nothing. Where does that money come from? Your pockets, our seniors' pockets. I'm concerned about my seniors. I'm concerned about the people who are just hand to mouth. And for Social Security, I mean, all right, so they want 2.4%. I don't know what ours is going to be up. I don't know what the county is going to go up. Where does it end? Look what's happening in the school district down south. Was it Dunkirk or what? No, I don't know. It's Dunkirk. Okay, they're having trouble with the school. Well, now parents are coming out. Well, we don't want to lose teachers. We don't want to lose this. Well, where's the money going to come from? These are your children. These are your children. All right. Seniors have no children. We never had children. My wife has MS. We don't have children. I don't mind paying for them. Believe me, I love my kids. That's why I volunteer to teach kindergarten at Maryvale. All right, because I love the kids. I care about them. But you know, when is enough enough? And I think everything is going to hit the fan sooner or later. It's like we can't continue the way we're going. All right, I appreciate dialogue, what you guys have dialogue, that you got to come to a decision, but you know, it was very good tonight. Nobody was yelling, nobody was screaming, nobody was getting personal. I appreciate that. But you know what, we really have to really think about this. Where does this end? Okay, because I'm seeing more and more houses going up for sale in Cheektowaga. I go down Harlem Road, my heart breaks of all the empty buildings. I'm seeing that even on Genesee Street, the empty buildings. What's going on? You know, I love Cheektowaga, and I want to stay here, and I want to be a blessing to this neighborhood and to our town. But please think about what's happening. One other question I have: when is the next reassessment? Because that's what some of my neighbors are asking me. When are we going to get hit again? They're scared. When is that? Is that this year or is it next year? When is it? 2026.
Desire was cyclical. I don't believe we have anything on the books that requires an assessment ever again. We don't have a cyclical on the books. We don't have a full valuation on the books. So theoretically, we can become a situation where we go 40 years without an assessment, townwide reassessment.
Okay.
Unless the board decides to opt into something.
Okay, because I got people asking me on the outside, they're scared. When are we going to get reassessed? Because we've seen our taxes almost double in the last 5 years.
Hopefully the new assessor will address some of their concerns with his flyers and his video. That was a good idea.
Well, that's why I met with Elias out there, try to get him at Duca, have enough people in the neighborhood in that area.
Right, word of mouth, right, yeah.
Because people they have questions, and you can't do it on this. I mean, I can't do it on this stuff on computers. All right, but if he's there, at least it'd be question and answer. If he doesn't know, well, she's new on the thing. Okay, fine, but we could find out. And I'm asked that I would also come and see what the assessor's office is like. I'm trying to get to every department to see what the departments are like. But we just got to get some dialogue, and I appreciate, everything that's gone on tonight, but please remember something. The money doesn't grow on trees, as my father used to say. It doesn't. And sooner or later, it's going to hit the fan. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Going once? Twice? Okay, we're going to move on. Next up is supervisor's comments. I just wanted to hit on a few things that I worked on over between the last meeting and this evening. On Thursday the 13th, I held a town hall. Our highway superintendent was there. Our county comptroller was there. We had some folks come out, and you make yourself available and invite the public to show up. I know the Reverend knows with Duca and other folks that run taxpayer groups and community groups, the neighborhood watch here. It's just a challenge now to get people to come out in person and do things, but we're seeing more and more new faces show up to community events, to these town halls, to the taxpayer meetings. So I just want to keep encouraging people to get FaceTime with elected officials, the heads of these community organizations, and get more involved personally in the community. Meet your neighbors at these groups, at these organizations, at these events. It gives you opportunities if your trash doesn't get picked up, or there's a problem with the street light in the neighborhood, or you need to talk to CPD for whatever reason, that you get opportunities to meet police officers, neighborhood liaisons, all these folks that can get you connected to answers to questions, services, and so much more. I mentioned earlier, we held, there were a couple meetings between the 11th and now dealing with infrastructure and other work. We had one last Friday, the 21st, getting into our DC consent order and other infrastructure work. And that was a follow-up to a previous meeting, but it's spent considerable time between meetings on what we're looking at in terms of infrastructure needs in the town and what's top priority and what can wait. Just last night, I was at a meeting with a couple of our council members at one of the fire halls, and we were talking about the struggle of that particular fire district and things that we can do to work together to deal with that. Now that we're on the same page, we're in our infancy on how to practically address the problem, because as the Reverend said and Mr. Filipski said in his way this evening, money doesn't grow on trees, and we have limited resources, but we have problems we need to solve too. So it's really hard to thread the needle and do both of those things. So coming out of that meeting last night, I'm hoping in the coming months, we have a concrete proposal for a solution. It's going to require a lot of conversation with a lot of people that are independently elected, and to get everybody together on what we're going to try to solve that particular issue. And that's really all I got. I'm going to open it up to the council members, start with Mr. Pilarski and work over.
So I've got 3 things on my list here to go over. Last week I held a youth sports group meeting, committee meeting, and it was well attended. I believe every league was represented, with the exception of maybe one, but they had an emergency to run out to. They were all here. I think it was very successful. These sports leagues they understand that, hey, there's no money in the budget to help aid them or support them and help them. And they understand that, hey, our regulations and rules have changed for field usage and all that stuff. So we tried thinking outside of the box so they weren't just relying on the town for financial assistance. And I think it went well because there were some best practices shared, different funding sources out there shared, multiple ways to skin a cat there. So kind of bouncing ideas off each other and what our future looks like for us as a group and where we want to go with it. So as that continues to grow, this was just the first meeting, just the foundation of it all. I'll keep you guys updated, and hopefully our leagues can kind of work together in a collaboration and partnership mode rather than in silos. So like I said, I believe it was very successful, and I think they did as well. Everybody left, not joyful, like, oh great, but left on good terms, like, hey, all right, I left with something new today because somebody else shared a resource or a tool. And some other good news to share is we were all informed today via email, Tunnels to Towers, the project. I know there were some questions, when's that project starting? That project's going to start as early as tomorrow, we're told. On-site demo work starts. Next couple of weeks, start building up. So we're in good shape right there. That's exciting, some good news. And when we talk about new housing and development, this is a great one, especially for our veterans there. And then one last idea I was thinking of as we were going up here throughout this meeting, there was some questions, hey, people really don't understand what goes on in the assessor's office, or they don't understand what's going on in the clerk's, like what are job duties, or, hey, I have a house next to me and, it's been boarded up and the inspectors are out there, the town's doing nothing. Well, they don't understand the process. Hey, it's got to go to housing court, then they're given another, 30 days or a couple more days, and then it goes back and all this stuff and the different laws that the state puts on us. So the big component I think we could all agree on is about educating the residents on the process of, our departments and what they do. Now, our police does a great job. They have a citizen police academy, and it's educating our residents. They have groups of 15 to 20 go through a couple-week course or whatnot. I'd like to see something started at our level here, a citizen participation academy or something, name it whatever you want, to where it's a 6-week course. And, week one, they're an hour in front of the highway superintendent, kind of understand the nuts and bolts, and then ask questions to the highway superintendent. The next week they're meeting with another department, maybe it's the assessors and the clerk's office, and the next week and so on. Kind of a 6-week course with them, with our department heads, kind of understand the operations of the town a little more, rather than just saying, hey, nothing's getting done. And then they get educated with the hopes that they could share that knowledge out there into the community, rather than the false information of town's not doing anything. They came out and cited this place and there's no follow-up or whatever. So I'd like to get something like that formed up. I just thought of it right this second, and we'll work on it as a group on how it looks, but just something brainstorming with what I'm hearing, a common theme tonight in regards to educating our residents.
Yes, I just would like to talk a little bit about the harsh reality that the town needs to get their house of cards in order, fiscal accountability. I'm hoping that the board will work diligently, because I'm of the opinion that for every 10 people that can absorb a tax rate hike, that there's probably 20 people that it's affecting. Our seniors, our people that are unemployed. It's getting harder to live in this world. And, Reverend Rick made a good point, needs versus wants. The people in Maryville, I don't know how they're going to sustain, anymore in that, that school budget's out of control. I would love to have a new roof, a new driveway, a new fence. I'd like to have a lot of things, but, I have to live within my means. And I think the problem with government for far too long, they don't live within their means. It's always more is more. And, they put more burden on the taxpayers. So, people say, elections have, consequences. So, when people think about things, when they're paying their tax bills and they're looking at it and their assessed values of their house, they also need to look at who their elected officials are and who are actually entertaining conversations to offset that, because for far too long, I can speak on myself. I think I pay too much money to live in this town as taxes. I pay probably some of the highest taxes in this town, and not necessarily by choice. So myself as a taxpayer in this town think that, we need to do something, drastic measures. There has to be drastic measures. They're doing it on the federal level, and, sure, people don't like it, but unfortunately, any successful company, in order to, be sustainable, they're going to make necessary cuts. They're going to do what they're going to do in order to, be in the black and make sure that their, bottom line is profitable. So, I understand government isn't in the business to be profitable, but I think there's a lot of things that we haven't done in the past that we need to do now, because it's led up to the 60 years, I think Cheektowaga is. It's time that we start working for the people in this town. We start looking at, what we're doing here as a whole. And, I think there are some things that we can eliminate that, there is fat on the bone. I think there are things that we can definitely take away that aren't going to adversely affect your garbage pickup, or, if your roads are going to be plowed, so I really, hope, and, as a taxpayer, I'm hoping we can do something to try to move this town in the right direction, because, as Reverend Rick said, there's for sale signs going up. There's going to be more foreclosures. Cheektowaga isn't in the top of Erie County for foreclosures for, a coincidence. It's because, our taxes are outrageous, and it's time that we get our house of cards in line. And that's not a scare tactic, because if we do not, the town's going to be on a crash course to go bankrupt. And I would hate to see the town that I've raised my family and go go bankrupt, I'd actually be awfully embarrassed. So I'm just hoping we can get our house of cards in line. Thank you.
Just briefly, I agree with Reverend Rick about our senior population. Now that I'm hitting that senior age, it's harder to work to compensate your income. Whereas our young people, it's easier for them to work. So it kind of makes sense that we have to consider our senior population and help them. It's harder for them to work. Many of them are disabled and they just can't work. I'm back at work because of the fact that, it's hard to make ends meet. So my husband retired. I went back to work. So we have to rely on our younger population to pick up the slack and also consider the expenses. And that's why I am a stickler about going through the warrant for every meeting, just to make sure our spending is in line and making some tough decisions, like not being able to add the senior planner. I know we need a senior planner, but we just can't afford it right now. It's a want, but we're just going to have to make ends or make do with what we have right now. So that's just my opinion, why I vote certain ways. It's having to differentiate between a want and a need. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Thompson.
Yes, I think that's a very good point for me to pick up on, wants versus needs. And, senior planner would be great, but I think a need would be a controller. And we did have interviews for a controller. We're probably going to have second interviews in the next week, I would say. So I think that's an investment where you may see a good return on. And I think it'd be great to have somebody that can assist and work with our director of finance to be able to make sure he has the tools necessary to be able to watch the things coming and going. And I think with our new accounting system too, that's in place, it will help bring us up to the 21st century. I know I was kind of a stickler on the process for bidding out that contract. And if the big picture concern is emergency type work, then I don't see why we can't put a bid out for emergency type work. And especially if the conversations have been happening for so long. So I'm hoping by the end of the night or a day or two, this board, whether it's email communication, can determine what our next steps are going to be in that direction. So yes, like Councilmember Pilarski said, it's on all of us. So I hope in the next day or two, I don't think it'll be that hard to come up with a decision. But yes, that is on all of us. And as far as meeting we had last night, Supervisor Nowak and Councilmember Filipski trying to spearhead this EMS study that was taken. They offered some solutions, and we're still in the same boat. It's a very complex issue, but at least it's at the forefront now. And again, you're trying to work with, independent fire companies who, may not like what you suggest to do, but I think it's at that point where you have more and more people who are being affected by this. And, they're waiting hours for an ambulance call, or even I'm very happy to see, and congratulations to the dispatchers that were, brought in today, because, trying to determine what is necessary to send 3 fire halls to, because somebody stubbed their toe, it's on the public too, to not abuse that system, but it's certainly taking a strain on our system to where it needs to be looked at. And I'm glad that at least we're having those discussions now to try and improve that. So I look forward to providing updates as they come along.
Councilmember Bukowski?
Yeah, I just want to say in the last couple of months, things have really improved as far as dialogue with one another. We talking with one another Tony and I, and meeting with the supervisor to address issues in the town. And what I do like is the fact that we can put our letters behind us and just sit and go to work for all of you. And a few things we're slowly getting accomplished, but there's a lot of work to do. And one of the biggest things we want to do is definitely save money, take care of our seniors. With that, also, I wanted to just piggyback in regards to veterans. If none of you who are veterans and do not know, we do have the new Veterans Center that is opened up now. That used to be at the old Como Mall or Apple Tree Mall. The bank is now the Veterans Center. So it's a wealth of it's a great place with a wealth of information. So if you are a veteran or you know of anybody that's a veteran, needs some assistance with anything, they're a good resource. And again, that Tunnel to Towers is going to be awesome. And being a veteran myself, I'm really looking forward to that.
Councilman Flipsky.
Probably just following up on pretty much what everybody else said. I'm very happy. Thank you all for the meeting today. I think it went very well. Respectful. I'm glad to see that. I think I've been talking to the supervisor more than my wife this week. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining. But anyhow.
I have to give you a couple more phone calls to really dig in, you know?
I lost. Anyway, like the senior planner position also, I know Dan really briefly in the past few weeks. He works hard. I appreciate everything you do in your office. It's just kind of bad timing. And I agree with what everybody said. Our employees work hard. I see Rick quite a bit out. I see him plowing streets. I see him, he's out. I've got to know more people than I thought I knew everybody after 30 years, but you don't. And you thought you knew what everybody did, but you don't. You see how hard the building department works, how the inspectors work. And to echo what Councilmember Pilarski said, people don't really realize because they don't see the inspector there and they're like, oh, nobody gives a crap about this house. Now there's rats and da. But they were there and there's a whole follow-up. And when we have questions, they get back to us very quickly. Basically all the departments and department heads, any employees. So, kudos. We have a good town. We have good people in this town. We have good people that work in this town. And they're dedicated and they work hard. I'll get off my soapbox. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. With that, I'm going to make a motion to enter executive session to discuss pending litigation and the employment of a particular person. Do I have a second?
With no action to follow.
Got you, yeah, with no action to follow. Do I have all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?